Hi friends, Sharon here from Mad Paper Crush. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a little tutorial on making these hidden tuck spot pockets. So I don't really even know what to call them, but let me show you how they work. So this is a piece that could be put into a journal. You could clip it into a journal, or I didn't cover the back, so this one I was thinking I would glue into a journal on a page. But let me show you how it works. So it looks like it's a tuck spot or a pocket here for this tag that's in the top, but underneath this flap is a little hidden spot where there's a side pocket here and some tags and things in this big pocket inside here, and then this side tag in here with the tab on it that keeps the whole thing closed when it's all put together. So I hope you'll join me today as we make these hidden pocket flip spots. I don't know, maybe that's what I'll call them. Come on, let's go. So for this project, you're going to need a number 10 envelope, and this is a number 10 envelope is 4 1/4 inches by 9 1/2 inches. So that's what I'm going to be using. Of course, you could use, a different size if you wanted to, but that's what I'm using right here. And then I have some papers. So I have a piece of cardstock, a double-sided piece of cardstock. That's 12 by 12, and it's not a real thick cardstock, but it's cardstock. And then I have these other pages that I'm going to use to be covering some of the envelopes. So this one is on presentation paper, so it's very light, and this one is on cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker. And these are not double-sided, so these are just one-sided. So that's kind of the equipment that we'll need, the supplies that we'll need. And then the tools and things that you'll need are probably scissors, a pencil, definitely a cutter, maybe a ruler. I'm going to be using my distress inks, like I always do, and some glue here. I'll probably be using a variety of these. I'm not sure exactly which ones I'll be using. And then also I probably will be using a hole punch. This is a 1-inch hole punch to make some notches in the different things that we're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start by prepping our envelope. And I'm not going to be using the flap part to get into the envelope, so I'm going to glue that shut. But I do want the envelope to remain open inside, so when I glue it down, I'm just going to make sure that I glue only where the adhesive is for the envelope, so that our envelope stays open on the inside, but the flap is glued shut. So I'm just going to do that. And then once that's kind of set up, I just want to make sure that's set, and that's a pretty quick grabbing glue, so it shouldn't take too long. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off just the teeniest bit on both sides of the envelope to create openings on either side of the envelope. So just enough to open that up on both sides. There, and this side for some reason does not look even. I don't know if I had that flat or not. Well, maybe it's just a crooked envelope. So I'm just going to try and cut it straight, and hopefully when we fold it, it won't show that that's crooked. Okay, so next thing then, oh, and I wanted to just show you. So now that we've cut the envelope, I have a tube. So, and that's what we wanted to start with. So the next thing that we're going to do is create the shape of the envelope. And so I'm going to fold up one side. Now I'm probably going to use this either as a tuck spot or even just glued into my journal. So I'm not so worried about the back, and that's why I kind of put the flap on the back. That way we have a nice flat surface on this side to work with when we start covering and doing that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the envelope over to make it a 6-inch piece. So I'm just going to find on my little mat here where 6 inches is, and fold it up. And there's really no rhyme or reason for this measurement. The reason I'm doing it is because a 3x6 tag will fit in there, and most of my journals are, you know, about 8 inches tall, and so this seems to me to be a good size, but you certainly could, you know, do whatever size you wanted to do here. So now I have this fold over. My whole piece now is 6 inches. And I'm just going to grab a little credit card here. You can use a bone folder if you have one to crease everything down. And I'm just going to make sure that, you know, I'm lined up pretty good around the edges. Okay, so then the next part that I want to do before we do anything else is I'm going to distress the envelope, and I'm going to distress around all of the edges. So around the edges of the fold, around the edges of here, and then I'm going to make sure I do the sides. And I'm also just going to try to open this up a little bit and distress the insides of my opening. And I just do that so that it matches the rest of the envelope, and that bright white really isn't showing, you know, when you're putting things in and out of the pockets that we've created. So I'm going to go ahead and distress all of that. I'm using my Vintage Photo Distress ink. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cover the envelope. And before I do that, though, you can see my envelope is pulling up a little here. I am just going to go in real quick and glue that down, because I don't want my paper that goes on top, you know, to be pulled away there. So I'm just gluing that down just real quick there. Okay, and then to cover the envelope, I've decided to use my lightweight sheet that I've printed out here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of pick an area that I want, you know, to be in each place here, and I'm going to cover it. So for example, I really like this blue butterfly, so I may try to get him on this front piece here. And then I'm going to cut another piece for the inside. So we haven't glued our envelope yet. We're going to cut a piece to go here, and we're going to cut a piece to go on the front flap here. And both of those I'm going to cut out of here. Now I will say, when I cut this piece, which I'm going to do in just a second, I am going to try to be sure that I cut enough to go all the way down to the bottom crease. And normally I wouldn't necessarily do that because, you know, the pocket here would cover most of that. But I'm thinking about putting a notch on this side for a hidden pocket on this side. And so I want to be sure when I do the notch that you're not going to, you know, just see white envelope underneath there. So that's why I'm going to do that. So to cut these out, what I'm going to do is, what I always do is I kind of mark, let's see. I like this little orange butterfly up here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure so that the top down can go in here. So I'm just lining up my paper with my envelope, and like first I do it long ways, and so I'll make a little mark with a pencil that's extended on here, and I'm actually doing my marks just a teeny bit less than the size that I want, because I'm going to have a border around. And that's the other reason why we kind of did a lot of distressing around the edges, because if there is a little bit of a border, it'll just look distressed. You won't see the white. So this is one cut right there. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll line up the width area that I want with a little tiny border here and a little tiny border there. and then I know how much I want. And I just realized that I didn't do such a hot job right here on this part that's going to show. So I want to be sure I get some distress on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut this out, our back piece. And I'm just measuring from my marks here. And I might try to just cut this out without actually cutting all the way down, just in case I want to use that bottom piece for something different. And then same thing here. Oops, I don't think I quite got to that. Nope. I missed just like 1/8 of an inch on there. Okay, I think I got it there. All right, so this is going to be our back piece. There. And then I'm going to do the same thing measuring wise for the front piece, which, let's see, I wanted to try to get this little blue butterfly on here. So I'm going to probably make 2 marks. Let's see. Where'd my pencil go? Make a mark there, and a mark there. And then in terms of width or length, I guess, I don't know. I want the bottom up to about here. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to cut this side first, and I'm going to try and go all the way over to where that cut was, or mark, excuse me. And then I'm going to cut this mark. And I like that on there. So now we're probably going to be covering up some of this because I'm going to be making another little pocket on top of here. But you could certainly leave it like this too, and I think that looks great. So next step, of course, is to distress everything. All right, so same thing. I'm just going to go around the edges and add some distress. Okay, my cover pieces are all distressed and ready to go. But before I glue them down, I'm going to actually cut all of my additional pieces because when I do my hole punch, my little notch that I want to do, I want to be sure everything's lined up. So to do that, I want to cut my additional pieces and have them all ready to go before I glue anything down. So what I'm going to use for the front flap and our second pocket area is this piece of card right here. And so I'm going to cut this down. Let me just move these to the side for a second. So our flap, we want to be the size of our 2 pocket envelope here, plus about 1 inch, because we're going to use that to create the flap part for the top of this piece. So I'm going to, once again, make a mark, and I don't think, let me see. So I'm probably going to cover the front flap with some collage or some sort of decoration. So I'm not real concerned about what is on there. So I think I'm just going to do it from this corner. So I'm lining this up, and I'm doing this edge to edge, not giving me any border this time because I do want the flap to cover the entire bottom part to make it more of a hidden pocket. So I'm going to line this up. And then I'm just going to mark about 1 inch above. And once again, I'm not real concerned because we'll score this to make sure that it matches what we want it to match when we get there. And then I do want to also measure my side piece here to make sure it's pretty exact there. So I have my, this is going to be my straight cut here, and then I know how much across the top that I want. So let's go ahead and cut that out. And I think on this piece, I may just cut all the way down the top, because I know that I can use this piece in some other things. And since it's kind of just a collage itself, it lends itself pretty well to that. Let me just move this out of the way. And then I'm going to cut my top piece here. Okay, so this should cover pretty good. And it should be pretty even from edge to edge, which it is. And it's a little bit taller, which is what we wanted. So that looks good. Now, the next piece that I want to cut is I want to do a little side pocket on the front flap. So after we cover this, I wanted to have, and I may even do the pink, I don't know yet exactly, but we're going to do a little side flap or a side pocket here. Let me see. I think I like this way better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match the height of my flap. So I'm just going to mark my height again, and I just have a teeny tiny border, or a teeny tiny, you know, I just came in from the edge just a little bit so that I know it's not going to flop over or anything like that. And then this one, I'm going to actually measure how far over I want it to be. So the pocket itself, the little side pocket that I'm about to create, I do want that to be like about halfway, halfway over here. I think that might be enough, maybe a little bit more. So in my case, I'm going to measure this out to be about 2 1/4 inches wide. So I have my mark for width here, which I'm going to cut first. And then I'm going to measure this 2 1/4 inches wide. So you can see now, this piece is going to be my side pocket, and it's going to go right here on top of this, like that. And actually, I think that might even be a little bit bigger than I wanted, because I'd like more of this to show. So I think I'm going to maybe cut this down. I might even cut it down a whole inch. Let's see, if I take an inch off, it'll be about to here. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and take about an inch off of it. So I'm going to decide which side I want an inch taken off of. So this will be about 1 1/4 inches, since it was 2 1/4 inches to start with. I think I may put it up to 1 1/2 just to be sure I've got what I want here. Yeah, I like that much better. Yes, perfect. Okay, so I have my flap, I have my side pocket here, and I have my cover pieces. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch my holes first, and then I'm going to distress the pieces that haven't been distressed yet. So when I say punch my holes, I want a little notch on this side of the pocket so that it'll be obvious, you know, that there's a little place to put a tag in this side here. So what I'm going to do, because I have a border around this piece that we're going to put on top, I'm actually going to line it up with the very top edge of this side, so that when I actually glue it down, there will be a little bit of a border. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pocket that I'm going to create, and I'm going to line that up as well. So all 3 pieces are going to be lined up on the edge that I'm punching in my flap, so that I punch through all 3 together. That way, when I punch, the curve of my notch will match my pocket and also my cover piece here. So now this part, I am probably just going to eyeball. So I'm going to make sure I have it, and let me unfold this to make it a little easier here. I'm going to make sure I have it lined up in about the middle. So once again, I'm just eyeballing that we're in about the middle, and I have it not quite halfway through, and we'll give that a punch. Ooh, everything went flying. Okay, so now you can see all of my notches are going to match. And when I put this down, giving it a little bit of a border, there will be a little bit of a border on my notch as well. And then this will match when I distress that too. So let's go ahead and do some distressing. And you can see, since I made the punch, I'm going to probably increase my distress here so that when this has a little bit of a border, it's not going to show. And I'm going to make sure I distress in here since I just punched that. All right, so let me grab my distress ink and we'll go to town. Okay, let's go ahead. I did go ahead and distress this, but I need to mark this where we're going to make the fold. I need to do a score on there. So if you have a scoring board, you can certainly use a scoring board. I'm just going to use this little embossing tool here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up where I want it on my envelope. And then I'm going to take a ruler and put it right at the edge, holding things down so that I don't mess them up here. Right where I want to emboss, which is going to be right at the top. And I'm just going to make a couple of score marks here. And I'm using I'm using a heavy hand, but not too much of a heavy hand. So I'm doing a couple. So that should be enough to let us fold that right where we want it. And the reason I am saying that is because I do want to distress where the fold is. So before I distress around that, I'm going to cut my my notches in here so that it goes in the envelope. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the fold and cut a little corner off of my flap. And I'm going to do the same thing here, except I'm going to start the other way, which I could go this way. Start at the fold and cut a little corner off there. And this will just make it easier when we go to put our flap in. So the flap will go in the top envelope, hole there, and come down over like that. So that will be all nice and ready to go when we're ready to put that on. But I am going to distress that. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is we're at a crossroad, friends. You have to decide now. Well, you don't have to decide now, but I'm going to decide now. Do I want to sew? I love to sew my pieces. I love adding that kind of textural piece to this. So what I would sew, if I was going to sew, is I would probably sew around here, just around the whole flap, and then maybe around my pocket. I could sew around all of these pieces too to add some texture in there. I'm not sure I'm going to do that though, because I do just kind of like the way that looks. But these pieces, I think it might help them stand out a little bit more if they were sewn. So I think I made up my mind. I think just talking to you about it helped me make up my mind. I'm going to sew around this little piece, and I'm going to sew just around the front flap cover here, just to add some additional texture before we do some more decoration and gluing down. So I will be right back and I will show you what that looks like. Okay, I added some sewing. You can see I used a big zigzag around the flap and a smaller one around our pocket. And I like that added a little bit of texture. So before we glue, I realized since the flap, when we fold it up, is going to show, I do want this to be distressed as well. So if you're doing an underside and aren't going to be doing collage or anything on there, make sure you hit that with your distress ink as well. Okay, believe it or not, I think we have made it to the point where we can glue some stuff down. So I'm going to start by gluing our cover pieces on to cover the base of the envelope. So I'm going to glue the back piece on first, and I'm just going to use my glitter glue here because I like the way this sticks things down really good at the edges of a piece of paper, and it grabs pretty fast. So if you're using this, you want to be sure you've got things lined up and ready to go when those pieces of paper touch. This is going to start to grab right away. So now that I've said that, hopefully I can do that. So I'm just going to line this up, try to give us our little tiny border that we had cut. And I like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for our front flap. I'm just going to add a little glue. Make sure I get around my notch pretty well. Whoa. And I got some glue on my mat here, so I don't want to, I got to be careful I don't get that on my project piece here. Okay. Just a teeny little border there. Get this glue off. And we'll get that held down. And so you can see, because we made a notch here, the underneath is showing. So we wanted to make sure that that was nice and covered for us when we get going. Okay. So now, I think I can go ahead and just want to make sure these are getting stuck down. Now we can go ahead and glue these on as well. So the pocket here, I'm just going to glue these three sides. So the top, the back piece or the bottom piece, and the bottom here. So three sides so that we have our pocket in the top there. And we'll give that a minute to set up. And I'll explain what we're going to do with this. So for this flap, so you remember we cut off the ends of our envelope, and so we have an opening up here, and we're going to use that to put our flap in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue just on the edge of this flap, the inside edge of this flap, and then we'll be able to slide it in here, and we're just going to make sure the glue is against the top piece of the pocket so that we still have an opening in the back to add, you know, ephemera to if we wanted to later. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue this flap piece. And I'm going to slide it in up to the crease, up to our fold. And then just smooth it down there. Okay. So I'm going to let these dry a little bit, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, our last piece to glue is our flap. Now I am going to glue the top edge and the side edge of this so that the pocket matches this pocket here. So we're gonna have a pocket in the side here and a pocket right there. But because we cut a hole in our envelope, we're also gonna have a third pocket up at the top here. So when you glue, just be sure to glue the edge of the top edge or the bottom edge of the envelope and the side. And just be sure that you really give this one some time to hold, because the envelope is, you know, a double layer and you're only gluing one. You want to be sure that this holds really well over on this side. And we're actually going to we'll add some hardware there to kind of help that along, so that we know for sure that this is going to stay down. Because when you glue just the one layer, the other layer can start to pull it up, and we don't want that to happen. So let's give that a second to dry, and then we'll add a little bit of hardware. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm just going to use these little gold brads that I have to help hold down my pocket real well. I like the way that this will add some more texture, some differences here to the pocket. So all I'm going to do is I have a little hole punch, and I want it to be a very small hole punch. I have this Euro punch that I'm going to just eyeball. You could probably just use like a, an awl, or like I have this little pokey tool that you could use to poke holes, whatever you normally use to poke your holes. Whoops, and try not to throw your brads all over the place. Just move those over there. So all I'm going to do is and since I want it to match, I'm going to do a brad in this corner and a brad in the other corner. So like I said, I'm just going to eyeball where I want my brad to go. And let's go ahead and put those in. And now we can be pretty certain that our pocket here won't, you know, pull apart for us. Okay, so this is looking really good. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to cut the tag for the side. So when you put this down on your journal page, you can kind of see how my flap is coming up, and I want to hold that down a little bit, so that my hidden pockets aren't so obviously pockets or under there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tag hole for the tag, but it will also have a piece that will help to hold this flap down, so that when it's in your journal, it'll, you know, kind of just look like a, you know, regular space there. So I'm going to cut my cardstock for a tag. And obviously you can add whatever ephemera into your pockets that you want. I'm just going to go through this one because this one will help hold the flap down. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to cut the tag, the size for this pocket, plus about, I think it's about a 1/2 inch that I have to do, or maybe it's a little less. So I know that my pocket, or my envelope, is about 4 1/4 inches wide. So yeah, actually it's less than a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to just make my tag 4 1/2 inches long, and then we'll have to cut it down to size. And I think this is going to be about 3 inches wide. But depending on, you know, how straight I was with my glue, it might be a little more or less than that. So I'm going to cut it down to 3 inches wide this way and 4 1/2 inches long this way to kind of show you what I mean. And once again, I'm just going to pick an area on here that I kind of like. I kind of like this bottom corner here. So what did I say? 4 1/2 inches. And that'll be cool because it'll give me some of this butterfly. And then we're going to go about 3 inches up. I think that's what I've got marked here. And 3 inches wide. Let's see if I did that right. think that'll do it. Now it does seem to get a little tight when we get in there. I think it might be okay. Yeah, maybe I want to cut it down just a little bit. So that's a little tight in there. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off of the 3-inch mark, maybe take another 1/8 of an inch off of there. And actually, I might try and leave the flower part and take this off and see how that does. I just don't want it to be hard to get the tag in and out, so that's much better. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, and you could just cut, you know, like a normal tag top, or you don't have to cut any tag top if you don't want to. You could use a decorative top. So I have this crocodile that does a cloud and a scallop edge. But I think I'm just going to cut a little tab into there. So all I'm going to do is use my tab board. I have my piece in there to make tabs, and I'm just going to slide this in. Oops, I think I have it. Do I have it the right way? Okay, it looks like it was going crooked on me for some reason. And you know what? I think, well, I was going to say, I do probably want to do something with the back of this. And usually I try to cover the backs before I start, you know, punching things out. But we can probably cut them in later. So if I use a book page, or maybe even just a little piece of coffee dyed paper. Let's see what I got in here. I think this might look nice on here. So I'm just going to glue this down so that I don't have this stark white, since I've distressed everything else on the back here. And since this is cardstock, I think it'll be sturdy enough just with this one layer on here. And I'm going to try and line it up at the corners as well as I can. We'll give that a minute to set up, and then we will cut it out. All right, let's cut this out. Okay, you know what I'm going to say next? Distress. So now our tag is all ready to go in here. And so you can see this part will stick out, but that's okay, because we need that to put our piece on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 1-inch hole punch again, and I'm going to go back to, I'm going to take my cardstock here, and I'm just going to cut, actually, you know what, I think I might use this leftover, because it'll match this and kind of blend in a little bit. I'm just going to cut out a couple of pieces of this cardstock. I'm going to cut out 3, I think. 2 might be enough, but... And then we're going to glue them all together. So I'm going to decide which one I want on top. And this one has this little, I don't know, wreath or something on there. I think that's kind of neat. I think I'm going to have that one be the top piece. And just make sure they're lined up. I'm just gonna kind of mush the edges just a little bit to make sure they're all pressed down. And distress. Okay, so the next step is going to be to add this to our tag. Now I'm going to, just to make sure I have things lined up the way I want them, I'm going to make sure my tag is in here. And then I'm going to just kind of eyeball where I want this. So if I put this, you know, I want it to be in the middle of my tag here, but obviously my hole needs to go about right here to line things up. So let me grab my pencil again, just so I kind of have an idea of where I want the hole to go. So I'm not going to put a hole in the middle of this. I'm going to put a hole on the top edge or side edge of this circle. So I'm going to mark it here, but I'm also going to mark underneath kind of where I want it to go. So I'm just going to hold my pencil above this hole here and move that out, and then kind of give myself a little hole there too, so that I know where to punch things to get things done. Now, as I'm looking at this, I realize I am totally not in the center. So I think what I'll do is I will remark this at the same, you know, amount down, but I'm just going to center it a little bit better here. Okay, and I'm going to grab my hole punch again, and I'm just going to add these holes. And we should be able to get our brad through this one. So let me grab one more brad. And I'm just going to go ahead and crimp this over. And I probably will do a little bit more decoration on this tag, but I just wanted to at least show you, you know, how to make this work here. Okay, so now I have my tag ready to go, and when I slide it in here, I can just put my little flap over top of my flap and to hold it down. And so that'll keep things nice and pulled down for us. So now we can go ahead and decorate. We can add something to the top here. You could even add some collage in here. You could add another pocket up here if you wanted to. You could add a tag and everything down here. So let me see. I have this little cabinet card, and I just wanted to show you, you know, you can have a tag there. You have one on the side here, and then you can even add one right in here. And I don't think I have another tag yet, but you can see we can slide some little pieces of ephemera in here. This would be cute to have some tickets and stubs, I think, in here. Maybe that's what we'll do there. So let's go ahead and finish this up. Okay, my decoration is done. I used some of the collage page that I had and just cut a little bit of it out, and I sewed on it, added it to a book page, and then I have some sheer fabric behind it just to add a little something to the front here. So I put that on the front of my flap, and then I just created a couple of little other elements, tags and little note cards and things, along with the tag that we had made together that goes in the side. So once you've done all that, so on the inside here, I have this little card that I can tuck right in this side pocket here. And I took these two and I thought they would be good just kind of added into this big pocket right here on the inside. And then to the outside, that big pocket on the top there, I'm going to add this tag. So once you have everything put in, my brad turned a little bit there, our hidden pocket tuck spot for our journal page is complete. So you could glue this down on a journal page all together, and you would have all of these hidden pockets under this flap and in the back here, or you could even make this a pocket if, you know, in and of itself. So you could just glue on these 3 sides on a page, and you'd have another place to add even more ephemera over here. So that is all. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I had so much fun putting these together. I hope that you'll go out and try to make something today. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much, friends. Bye-bye.